Let's do this.
There's some things in public safety you should never leave until the last minute. Staffing, backups, redundancy, coffee, oh yeah, and nationwide responder communications probably should be on that list as well. But it's not always, and that's what's coming up next on TiPS, Today in Public Safety.
Welcome to TiPS, Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Here's your host, Fletch, with today's tips.
Welcome to TiPS, Today in Public Safety. This is Fletch. I'm a NENA-certified ENP. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I bring you the latest, most informative, and sometimes controversial takes on emergency communications. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into something that sounds a little bureaucratic, sounds boring, sounds like it belongs in a hearing room with bad coffee and worse lighting. But it's actually a very big deal for public safety across the country. You see, we're talking about FirstNet reauthorization. Now, I know the second you say reauthorization, half the audience starts mentally reorganizing the sock drawer. But stay with me, because this is one of those topics that proves once again that the most important pieces of public safety are often the ones nobody notices until they wobble. And when they wobble, everybody suddenly becomes a communications expert. Okay, here's the current situation. Just on March 25th, 2026, the House Energy and Commerce Committee advanced H.R. 7386, which is the First Responder Network Authority Reauthorization Act. And that was done by a unanimous vote of 51-0. That bill would extend FirstNet's authorization for 10 years through September 30th, 2037. It also added 2 additional public safety seats to the board and placed the authority for it directly under the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA. Now, let me translate that out of Washington speak into plain English for you. The bill is not just paperwork. It's not just some ceremonial rubber stamp where everybody smiles and shakes hands and then pretends that the real world isn't sitting outside with overloaded networks, disasters, major incidents, interoperability headaches, and field responders trying to move data under pressure. Now, this is the legal and structural framework that's behind a communications capability that public safety now depends on. And if you depend on it, you probably should care how it's governed, how it's funded, how it's protected, and whether Congress treats it like a national infrastructure, like that gym membership they keep meaning to cancel. You see, FirstNet exists because we learned the hard way that public safety can't keep relying on communication systems that were built for yesterday's problems. Today, voice alone is not enough. A modern public safety environment runs on data, location, images, video, situational awareness, and prioritized connectivity when commercial demand is at high and everything around you is going sideways at the same time. That's when there's a hurricane, a wildfire, any major event, active incident, infrastructure outage, or large-scale mutual aid response. Because in these environments, communications cannot become a game of digital musical chairs. 9/11 proved that, and that's why FirstNet exists. Public safety needs priority. Public safety needs resilience. Public safety needs governance that understands the mission and needs enough long-range stability that agencies can plan around it without wondering whether Washington is going to rediscover the issue at the last possible minute. The current House legislation is aimed at doing exactly that by extending the authority and preserving operational continuity beyond the current expiration timeline. And that's the part that too many people miss. Critical infrastructure today isn't just towers, fiber, routers, and spectrum. It's confidence. It's knowing that the thing you built your operational dependency around is not going to get trapped in a political scavenger hunt 6 months before the deadline. Now, to be totally fair and honest, there is some healthy debate around how reauthorization should look. A coalition of state and local organizations, along with public safety groups, backed the committee substitute and said it would strengthen public safety representation, extend the program to 2037, and reinforce the authority's ability to set strategy, manage reinvestment, and support emergency response capabilities without unnecessary interference. APCO's also said that it supports swift reauthorization with strong governance and public safety oversight. And it's that last phrase that matters: strong governance and public safety oversight. Because this is where the grown-up conversation has got to happen. If you're going to build and sustain a nationwide public safety broadband ecosystem, then the people that are closest to the mission need a real voice in the direction of that network. Not token input, not ceremonial seats at the kiddie table, a real voice, real representation, real operational perspective from the people who actually understand what happens when the network matters that much. And this is one reason why this deserves attention beyond the Beltway crowd. Because when governance drifts too far from operations, it's operations that eventually pays the price. And it seems that whenever that happens, it's always at 3 a.m, in the rain, during chaos, while somebody in a vest is trying to explain why the plan on paper didn't survive contact with reality. Reality check. Look, public safety's got a bad habit of taking communications infrastructure for granted once it becomes familiar. The network works, so people stop thinking about what keeps it working. The priority mechanisms work, so people assume they'll always be there. The ecosystem grows, agencies adopt it, users trust it, planners build around it. But then one day someone says, oh, by the way, this thing needs Congress to act. And that's when everybody suddenly rediscovers process. And public safety responders shouldn't have to live on hold listening to legislative music while they wait to find out whether mission-critical communications are being treated like mission-critical communications. FirstNet is no longer a pilot project. It's not a beta test. It's not a free trial with auto-renew turned off. It's part of the operational fabric of modern emergency response. The bottom line. Look, the bottom line for this one's simple. If FirstNet matters during disasters, major incidents, interoperability challenges, and day-to-day public safety operations, then reauthorizing it should not be an afterthought. It should be a priority. So the good news is that Congress did move the bill forward unanimously in committee, and there's broad backing from public safety, county, city, and state stakeholders for preserving the network and extending its life. But it still has to get through the full House and Senate before the current authority expires in February of 2027. So yeah, this is a policy story, but it's also an operations story. It's a resilience story, a governance story, and most of all, a reminder that in public safety, the plumbing matters just as much as the shiny stuff that's connected to it. Because when the moment comes, and it will, nobody wants to find out the nation's most important public safety broadband network was just one missed vote away from bureaucratic stupidity. And that wraps up today's session of TiPS. Today in Public Safety. Thanks so much for listening. For more updates and insights, be sure to follow me on social media at Fletch911. And remember, you can visit 911tips.com for a complete archive of all of our previous episodes. My blogs are available online at Fletch.tv, and my professional website is at Fletch911.com. Stay safe, thanks so much for listening, and if you're in public safety, thanks for what you do every single day. I'll see you next time. Take care.
You've been listening to TiPS, Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Hosted by Fletch and available every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Catch past episodes on 911tips.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember to join us each week for the latest on NG 911. I am Spider Harrison, the official 911 voiceover dude. Catch me on Sirius XM on various channels, including 90s on 9, the 10 spot, and on the Weekend Countdown on Hits 1. Or don't regret it for the rest of your life. Either way, I'm good.